Chosen one, stop for a moment and listen carefully. Heaven has interrupted your scroll, your thoughts, and your rhythm because this message concerns your safety. You are standing in a place that looks harmless, even comfortable, but the Spirit of God is stirring within you with urgency. Something unseen has shifted around you. You can't name it, but your soul feels it, the unease, the heaviness, the way peace slips away whenever you return to that environment. That is not coincidence. This is divine intervention. You have felt the pressure in your chest, the weight in your spirit, and the strange resistance in the air. You've tried to ignore it, to convince yourself it's only stress or emotion. But heaven is exposing the truth. You are not meant to remain there any longer. What once protected you has now become a trap. God's mercy is calling you to move before danger catches up. Heaven declares through the revelation given to John, chapter 18, verse 4, "Come out of her, my people, so that you will not share in her sins, so that you will not receive any of her plagues." You have stayed in the wrong atmosphere for too long. The conversations that used to excite you now feel empty. The people you trusted now drain you. You sense a quiet grief every time you force yourself to fit in where you no longer belong. That grief is the Spirit whispering, "Leave now." When God's presence lifts, nothing beautiful remains. Staying where He no longer dwells is not loyalty, it is self-destruction. You are not imagining the tension. You are not paranoid. You are being warned. There are spirits attached to that place, familiar energies that once comforted you but now seek to consume you. The Spirit of God is trying to rescue you before you become entangled in webs you cannot see. You prayed for discernment. This is the answer. Chosen one. The enemy loves comfort because comfort blinds discernment. As long as you feel safe, you won't move. But heaven is shaking your peace on purpose. Every closed door, every sudden silence, every misunderstanding, these are divine alarms ringing in your soul. The Lord is saying, "I am pulling you out before the collapse." Do not confuse familiarity with safety. Not everyone who smiles is sent by God. Some are placed around you to monitor, to delay, to dilute your fire. You have felt your spiritual sharpness fade each time you compromise to keep peace. But peace built on compromise is not peace. It is anesthesia before captivity. There are seasons when obedience looks like walking away quietly. You owe no one an explanation for your obedience to God. When heaven gives you an evacuation order, your job is to move, not to negotiate. Your destiny cannot afford hesitation. Remember this truth: the longer you linger in a corrupted space, the harder it becomes to leave. Chains grow heavier the more they are ignored. But if you move now, heaven will cover you. Angels will go before you. Your steps will be ordered, and no weapon formed against your obedience will stand. This is not a message of fear, it is a call to preservation. God is not taking something from you. He is saving you from what would have destroyed you. The sudden discomfort you feel is mercy in motion. Chosen one, your spirit already knows that. That's why peace disappears when you try to stay. That's why you keep feeling pulled toward change even when you don't understand it. You are being moved for protection, not punishment. So walk away now. Don't look back. Don't wait for everyone to understand. You're not leaving behind safety, you are walking into sanctuary. Heaven is already preparing new ground beneath your feet. If your spirit recognizes this message, like, share, and subscribe so others may awaken before it's too late. And as a prophetic act of agreement, comment 777 below heaven's number of completion and divine alignment. Let that number be your declaration: I choose obedience over comfort. Move now. Chosen one. Your safety depends on it. The wind of heaven is shifting and it's carrying your name. You are being repositioned for protection and purpose. Every step away from what was is a step toward what will be. Walk in faith, not fear. Trust the unseen hand that leads you. Your escape is your elevation. Even if your heart trembles, keep moving. You are not walking alone. Divine escorts surround you. Every tear you shed on this path becomes a seed of strength. You will soon see why God pulled you out. It was never rejection. It was redirection wrapped in mercy. This is your turning point, your exodus moment. As you leave, heaven seals the doors behind you. The noise fades, the weight lifts, and your peace returns stronger than before. Stand tall. Chosen. One, your obedience has built a wall of fire around your destiny. You have carried so much more than anyone around you can see. The weight inside your chest has not been ordinary, it has been spiritual. Every sleepless night, every silent tear, every moment you whispered, "Lord, what is happening to me?" was heaven's preparation for this moment. You have been feeling a burden because your spirit has been absorbing what your environment carries. You think it's exhaustion, but it's discernment. The heaviness you've been battling is not weakness, it's divine intelligence, warning you that something around you has become toxic to your purpose. The enemy often tries to disguise danger as familiarity. That's why it's the people closest to you who can drain you the most. You love deeply. You stay loyal. You give chances long after others would have walked away. But the Spirit keeps whispering that loyalty to people must never come before obedience to God. You've been sensing it, how the laughter feels forced, how the conversations feel shallow, how your energy crashes after certain encounters. It is not all in your head. The spiritual atmosphere has shifted, and your heart is responding before your mind catches up. There are seasons when God allows discomfort to become your teacher. You used to pray, "Lord, show me who's for me." Now He's showing you by making you feel the difference. Those who drain you are being exposed, not to embarrass them, but to free you. You can no longer carry the emotional weight of everyone else's chaos. You've been a healer, a listener, a light, but even light needs space to breathe. The Spirit of God has been pressing on your chest, making it hard to stay at peace in places that once felt safe. You walk into certain rooms and feel your joy vanish. You answer certain calls and your heart sinks. You try to pray, but the air feels thick. That is not ordinary tiredness, it is spiritual suffocation. You are too anointed to live in polluted air. You've wondered why the joy you used to feel in that group, that friendship, that job, or that relationship has disappeared. It's because heaven is shifting your assignment, and staying connected to what no longer aligns will crush your spirit. The reason it hurts so deeply is because your spirit still remembers what that place used to be. But what once blessed you can now break you if you refuse to release it. God's mercy often feels like loss. It feels like everything is falling apart when, in truth, heaven is cleaning house. You are not being punished, you are being protected. The sudden distance between you and certain people is not betrayal. It's divine separation. The reason the door closed so fast is because if it had stayed open, you would have missed what was next. Sometimes, the most spiritual thing you can do is let go. Stop trying to fix what God is finished with. You cannot heal a connection that heaven has already cut. You cannot resurrect what God allowed to die. You cannot keep standing in a field that He has declared barren. Obedience will always cost something, but the cost of disobedience is far greater. The Word of God speaks through the book of Proverbs, chapter 4. Verse 14. Do not set foot on the path of the wicked or walk in the way of evildoers. That's where you are now standing at a crossroads. One path looks familiar, easy, and safe, but it leads to emptiness. The other path is unknown, uncertain, but filled with light. You are being asked to choose faith over comfort. The burden you feel right now is heaven's way of turning your feet toward the good way. Every time you resist the pull of obedience, the weight grows heavier. Every time you ignore your intuition, the confusion deepens. You've prayed for peace, yet peace only lives on the path of obedience. God will not bless where He has already withdrawn His hand. The rest you're looking for will come only after you move. There is a divine reason for everything you've been feeling lately. The fatigue, the mood swings, the sudden sadness, it's your spirit groaning for release. You were never meant to carry what everyone else dropped. You were never meant to stay in atmospheres that dim your light. The weight you've been feeling isn't punishment, it's an alarm. It's heaven saying, you've outgrown this level. So take a deep breath. Acknowledge the heaviness, but don't let it define you. You are being strengthened by what once tried to break you. Soon, you'll see that the weight was not meant to crush you. It was meant to push you toward your next assignment. This is not the end. It's the awakening of a stronger, freer version of you. The pain you're feeling now is the final signal before your release. You have begun to see it clearly now, the false peace that kept you still. It always looked harmless, even holy, but deep down you sensed the compromise. There were moments when you smiled while your spirit trembled. Moments when you agreed to things that your heart resisted. The enemy is subtle. He never shows up in red horns, but in comfort, routine, and phrases like, "It's not that bad." Yet every time you silenced your discernment, your light dimmed just a little more. Heaven is showing you that false peace is the most dangerous prison, because it feels like safety while it slowly suffocates your purpose. You have stayed long enough in atmospheres that pretend to be spiritual but are void of real presence. They speak God's name but do not carry His breath. You've seen the masks, the performances, the manipulation dressed as kindness. You thought walking away would make you cruel, but now you understand it's obedience. True peace doesn't demand you to shrink your spirit. It doesn't require you to trade your conviction for acceptance. Real peace might make you lonely for a while, but it will never make you lose yourself. Your heart has been in conflict because you can feel two forces pulling at once. One voice says, "Stay calm." The other says, "Get out now." That's the tension of transition. When the spirit begins to move, the old tries to hold on. You are standing in that spiritual tug of war, and the only way to survive it is to surrender to truth. You already know the truth, you've just been scared of its cost. But truth doesn't destroy, it delivers. The spirit whispers again. You cannot heal in the same environment that made you sick. You can love people and still leave them. You can forgive them and still refuse to return. The proof of wisdom is distance. There are blessings waiting for you that cannot exist where you are. As long as you try to keep everyone comfortable, you will keep losing your own peace. God never called you to carry what He is trying to remove. You once prayed for clarity, and heaven gave you restlessness. The unease is your answer. God speaks loudly through discomfort. He is dismantling false peace so that you will chase real freedom. Sometimes He removes the illusion before the miracle, the counterfeit before the covenant. Every empty conversation, every meaningless connection, every draining atmosphere, it's being stripped away for your safety. The word of the Lord came through the writings in the book of Isaiah, chapter 52, verse 11. Depart, depart, go out from there. Touch no unclean thing. Come out from it and be pure, you who carry the vessels of the Lord. This is not just a verse, it is a command for the chosen. You cannot carry divine purpose while standing in polluted ground. The anointing on your life demands separation. Every minute you delay, the darkness grows bolder around you. But when you decide to step away, light rushes back into your lungs. It is not rebellion to leave what grieves your spirit, it is alignment with heaven. And when you finally move, you will realize how much strength you still have. You will look back and see that the false peace was never peace at all. It was distraction, deception, and delay. But your courage will break it. God is not asking for your explanation. He is asking for your movement. So, chosen one, take this moment as your signal. If this word burns in your spirit, don't ignore it. Acknowledge it in the simplest, purest way. Comment, "I'm leaving." Not as an act of rebellion, but as a declaration that you choose obedience over illusion. Every letter you type becomes a step toward freedom, a spiritual agreement between your will and heaven's command. When you write it, you're not just typing words. You're unlocking chains. You're announcing to every unseen force that the spell of false peace is broken. You're saying, "I choose truth even if it costs me comfort." The moment you make that declaration, angels take note. Heaven records your obedience. The next doors will open not because you forced them, but because you finally walked away from what was blocking them. You are being repositioned in real peace that carries presence, not performance. This is the breaking point. The illusion ends here, and freedom begins with 3 simple words that carry the power of your decision: "I'm leaving." When you type "I'm leaving," you are not declaring loss, you are proclaiming liberation. Those 2 words are not about abandoning people, they're about abandoning pain. It's a covenant between you and heaven, a public sign that your heart chooses obedience over comfort, truth over illusion, destiny over delay. When you write "I'm leaving," the atmosphere around you shifts. It tells every unseen power, "You no longer have access to me." It's the moment heaven applauds and darkness loses grip. This is not escape, it's ascension. You are stepping into divine safety, guided by the voice that called you out. You have heard the whisper, and now you begin to recognize the voice that cuts through the noise. It is not loud, yet it shakes everything false inside you. It comes in waves, gentle but firm, calm but commanding. It's not the sound of fear or confusion, but of clarity. It's the same voice that found prophets in caves, that called disciples from their boats, that wakes you up in the middle of the night with an unexplainable stirring. It's the voice of the shepherd, and his sheep still know his call. You have been surrounded by so many voices lately, opinions, expectations, fears, but this one feels different. It doesn't argue, it instructs. It doesn't flatter, it corrects. When you hear it, something deep inside you feels both exposed and healed. That's how you know it's him. God's voice is not found in chaos or performance. It is often discovered in quiet conviction. He speaks into the silence of your heart, and suddenly everything you've been struggling with becomes clear. You must move. There is a sacred power in recognizing his tone. The world is full of imitation voices, noise dressed as guidance, emotion pretending to be revelation. But the true voice of God never manipulates. It doesn't demand your fear. It awakens your freedom. When he speaks, your confusion loses authority. When he speaks, your direction returns. You are not crazy for hearing the whisper. You are chosen to discern it. You've asked him to speak clearly, and he has been. It's not that he's silent, it's that his tone has changed. He's no longer explaining, he's commanding. You are past the stage of needing signs. You already have confirmation. Every warning, every repetition, every stirring in your spirit, it's him trying to reach you above the volume of this world. It is spoken in the book of John, chapter 10, verse 27. My sheep listen to my voice, I know them, and they follow me. There it is, the essence of divine relationship. Hearing is not just a spiritual gift, it's a covenant mark. You recognize his voice not because you are perfect, but because you belong. That's why you can't find peace when you disobey it. The dissonance you feel after ignoring his whisper is not guilt, it's distance. You were designed to walk in step with his leading, not drag behind or run ahead. Every time you resist his prompting, the world grows louder. Every time you obey, the noise loses power. That's the test you're living through right now. The Spirit has been pulling you gently, telling you to stop explaining your discernment to people who don't carry your calling. They won't understand it because they weren't supposed to hear it. His voice is selective, it's not broadcast, it's whispered to the ones willing to listen. There's a reason the enemy attacks your focus so fiercely. If he can keep you distracted, he can keep you deaf. That's why your mind feels crowded, why silence feels uncomfortable, why rest seems impossible. The world trains you to crave noise because silence is where God speaks clearest. But when you make room for stillness, heaven fills it with direction. Do not underestimate the weight of one word from God. One whisper can end years of confusion. One divine nudge can change the trajectory of your life. When he says go, you move. When he says wait, you stay. His voice is not here to entertain, it's here to rescue. You have been asking him for confirmation, but he is asking you for trust. Listen closely when God speaks. It's not always convenient. It often challenges your comfort and exposes your attachments. But the same voice that disrupts is the one that protects. His instructions may sting, but they always save. He sees what you can't. He knows what's being formed behind the curtain. And every warning he gives is a thread of mercy woven through your timeline. You are being trained to hear differently now. This is not about prophetic gifts or spiritual titles, it's about intimacy. When you truly know his tone, you stop doubting your direction. You no longer chase signs because his presence becomes your confirmation. That's maturity, to obey not because it makes sense, but because you recognize who's speaking. So still yourself. Let the world's noise fade until all that remains is his whisper. In that whisper is instruction, correction, and safety. In that whisper is the map for your next season. You don't need to shout to hear heaven, you just need to quiet everything else. And when you do, you will realize that his voice was never far. It was speaking between your thoughts, guiding your steps, guarding your soul. You will finally understand that you've never been lost, only learning how to listen again. And as you listen, the chaos within begins to settle. You realize the shepherd never stopped calling. You just stopped noticing. Now his whisper becomes your compass, his presence your protection. Every step guided by that voice leads you out of confusion and into divine certainty. There comes a moment when you look around and realize that what once felt like home has turned into a cage. The walls are soft, the lights are warm, but your soul feels trapped. That's what happens when comfort becomes confinement. It feels safe until you notice the price of staying. You keep telling yourself it's temporary, that things will change. But deep down, you know the longer you stay, the smaller you become. God never created you to fit perfectly inside small spaces. You are light, light cannot be contained. You are wind, wind cannot be chained. Yet somehow, the environment you've outgrown has tried to convince you that shrinking yourself is humility. But heaven sees it differently. Heaven calls it delay. You can't carry a world-changing assignment and still sit in rooms that silence your fire. It doesn't matter how soft the prison feels, a prison is still a prison. And when the Spirit whispers leave, it's not rejection, it's release. You are not betraying anyone by obeying the voice of God. You're simply refusing to suffocate quietly. Every chosen one reaches this point, the moment when obedience feels like loss but is actually rescue. The Lord is showing you something vital. Staying in comfort is more dangerous than stepping into the unknown. The unknown may stretch you, but comfort will drain you. The unknown will test your faith, but comfort will weaken your faith. The unknown is the wilderness, but that's where manna falls. That's where water flows from rocks. That's where heaven proves that you were never meant to depend on walls, only on His presence. It is revealed in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 1, verse 6. You have stayed long enough at this mountain. Break camp and advance. This is the moment you break camp. You've been circling the same emotions, replaying the same excuses, hoping that something will change without movement. But God's word doesn't say wait for the mountain to move. It says advance. Because faith is not built in theories, it's built in steps. You might be scared to move, but what if fear is the sign you're finally doing something faith requires? You might not see where the next provision comes from, but you're walking with the provider Himself. Every time you obey, resources appear. Every time you step, favor follows. The path may look empty, but heaven fills it as you walk. And as you walk, I want you to remember this. You are not alone on this journey. What you're hearing right now is more than just a message. It's a movement. There are thousands of other chosen ones listening, standing where you stand, hearing what you hear, feeling that same call to step out. Together we form a river of obedience flowing in one direction, toward freedom, toward light, toward destiny. If this message has touched you, if it has helped you breathe again, I invite you to gently press the light click like it's more than a button. It's a spark, a small flame that tells heaven, yes, I hear you. Share this message the way one candle lights another in a dark field. You never know whose night you might brighten with that single act of kindness. Each share becomes a seed of hope planted in a heart you may never meet. And if you haven't yet, subscribe not as a follower, but as a traveler who walks beside this river of light. Subscription is not a contract. It's a signal to heaven that you want to stay close to the flow of truth. Finally, if your heart feels moved, donate as you would pour oil into a lamp. Not because the flame is fading, but because you believe it deserves to keep burning. Your giving is like warm breath on a winter ember. It keeps the fire alive for others still wandering through the cold. There's no demand here, no condition. Giving is not payment, it's participation. A seed leaves your hand, but it never leaves your life. Every coin of kindness multiplies in unseen soil, feeding someone else's breakthrough. So as you move forward, let this be your reflection, your time, your prayers, your encouragement, even your smallest gift. All of it becomes light poured back into the world. You may never meet the ones your giving touches, but heaven keeps record. Each seed of love becomes a door of deliverance for someone else. You are not asked to give because something is lacking. You are invited to give because something greater is growing. Just as light cannot stay contained in one vessel, what's been poured into you is meant to overflow. That overflow keeps this message alive, speaking to hearts long after the words stop playing. And remember, this obedience isn't just about walking away from what harms you. It's also about walking toward what heals others. Every act of support, every moment of engagement is an echo of obedience. When you share light, heaven takes notice. The cage is open now. You've been called to fly again. So take a breath, stretch your wings, and let the wind of purpose carry you. The same voice that told you to walk away will now teach you how to rise. Sometimes the most painful part of obedience is not leaving. It's waiting for what comes next. You've walked away from what drained you, but now you stand in the silence of in-between. The doors behind you have closed, and the new ones have not yet opened. You wonder if you made a mistake, if maybe you moved too soon, but this stillness is not punishment, it's divine transition. Heaven often quiets everything right before the next instruction. Every chosen one faces this moment. It feels like standing in a desert after the rain has stopped. Everything smells like promise, but nothing has bloomed yet. You look for signs, but all you see is sand, yet what you call emptiness. Heaven calls preparation. The wilderness is where noise dies so that truth can finally be heard. It's where you stop performing and start listening. It's where your roots grow deep before your branches ever touch light. God has pulled you out of the wrong place, and now He's teaching you how to breathe in pure air again. You may not feel progress, but every silent day is shaping your endurance. The same voice that told you to go is now saying, wait. Not because He changed His mind, but because He is aligning what's ahead. Timing is as holy as obedience. It is written in the book of Psalm in chapter 40, verse 1. I waited patiently for the Lord. He turned to me and heard my cry. That is where you are, between the cry and the answer, between movement and manifestation. And in this space, Heaven is doing its most delicate work, detoxing your spirit from everything that once blurred your hearing. You're learning to recognize His peace without needing a crowd to confirm it. You're learning that silence doesn't mean absence, it means intimacy. You may feel forgotten, but you are hidden. Hiddenness is not rejection, it's protection. When gold is refined, it disappears into fire before it shines again. So do you. Your silence is the fire that purifies your motives. It removes the need to be seen, so that when God reveals you, no one can claim credit for what only He could form. This season may look quiet, but it is loud in the spirit. Angels are rearranging, heaven is rewriting, and your name is being whispered in rooms you haven't entered yet. You think nothing is happening, yet everything is happening just beneath the surface. Still, the waiting tests your heart. You've left behind noise, and now all you have is faith. Some days you feel brave, other days you just feel tired. But tired faith is still faith. Even trembling hands can still open in surrender. Remember, obedience doesn't always feel victorious. Sometimes it feels lonely. That's why God whispers reassurance through the quiet. I haven't left you, I'm leading you. There's a strange peace that comes once you stop fighting the stillness. You start to see that waiting isn't wasted time, it's protected time. Heaven uses pauses to sharpen discernment, to stretch trust, to deepen worship. If you rush through it, you'll step into the next season unprepared. So breathe. Let the silence do its work. The same God who rescued you from danger will also deliver you into destiny. And when doubt tries to crawl back in, remind yourself He didn't bring you this far to leave you suspended. The pause has a purpose. You are being rewritten, recalibrated, refined. Every delay is secretly a setup for acceleration. So while you wait, lift your eyes. Let gratitude replace anxiety. Even here, in the in-between, you are seen. You are being molded into someone who can carry more without breaking. The wilderness doesn't define you, it prepares you. Soon, what now feels like delay will reveal itself as divine design. If these words echo inside your spirit, take a simple step of faith. Comment 888 below. It's not superstition, it's a symbol of new beginnings and eternal flow. By writing it, you're declaring that this quiet season is not your ending. It's the dawn of something infinite. When you type it, whisper this truth to yourself: I'm not waiting in fear. I'm waiting in faith. Let that number be a silent agreement between your spirit and heaven's timing. A reminder that every pause in God's hand eventually becomes a launch. Hold your peace, chosen one. The silence you're standing in is sacred ground. When you comment 888, you're not just typing numbers, you're planting a seed of surrender. So on, it's your way of saying, Lord, I trust your timing more than my understanding. Heaven reads faith written in simplicity. Writing 888 is like drawing a circle of eternity, no beginning, no end, just divine flow. It marks your agreement with heaven's rhythm, your willingness to move when God says move. Every time someone types 888, light ripples through the unseen. It's a symbol that the waiting ones are still believing, still listening, still ready. Heaven counts obedience, not minutes. Your pause has purpose. You stand now at the edge of what used to hold you. Behind you lies everything you survived, every storm, every betrayal, every lesson carved into your heart. Ahead of you lies only light, though faint and distant, waiting for your first step. This is the threshold moment, the holy space between what has been and what will be. It feels fragile, but it's sacred. You are standing on divine ground and heaven has gone before you. Your heart races because part of you still longs for what you left behind. It's natural. The familiar always calls to the fearful. But you are not meant to answer nostalgia when destiny is knocking. The human heart clings to comfort, but the spirit knows truth. There is no safety in stillness when God has said move. You are not walking away from something. You are walking toward transformation. The road ahead may not be mapped, but it is marked. Every step you take is already written in heaven's scroll. Every breath you draw in faith becomes a signal to the unseen realm that you have chosen obedience over fear. You are no longer surviving, you are beginning to live as one sent. When you step away from the old, you begin to feel light again. The heaviness breaks. The air tastes clean. It's as if the universe itself exhales with you. This is what freedom feels like: the absence of tension, the return of clarity. The people who once misunderstood your silence will one day see that your leaving was not rebellion. It was revelation. God called you out because He was preparing to call you up. You might look around and see no clear path. But heaven doesn't guide by roadmaps, it guides by presence. The Israelites didn't need a compass, they followed a cloud by day and a flame by night. Your guidance may look different, but the principle is the same. You move when peace moves. The Spirit reveals through the book of Exodus, chapter 13, verse 21. By day the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light. That same presence surrounds you now. You are not walking into uncertainty, you are walking into divine choreography. The steps may seem invisible, but they have been orchestrated with precision. Every delay, every detour, every closed door, they were not mistakes, but markers leading you here. You were not chosen because you were the strongest, but because you were willing. Obedience is heaven's favorite language, and every time you move in faith, you speak it fluently. You don't have to see the destination to trust the direction. Faith walks first, sight comes later. The threshold is not just a place of transition, it's a place of testing. Here is where fear makes its last attempt to convince you that you're alone. It whispers that you'll fail, that you're unprepared, that maybe the old place wasn't so bad. But listen, fear only argues with those who are dangerous to darkness. If it's speaking loudly, it's because your breakthrough is close. So lift your eyes. The unknown isn't your enemy, it's your training ground. This is where your discernment sharpens, where your trust matures, where your voice begins to echo with authority. You cannot step into promise with the mindset of survival. The wilderness stripped that from you. Now, you are learning to walk with dignity again. Every chosen one must pass through this moment of divine crossing. The past will tug, the unknown will intimidate, but the Spirit will empower. The same God who split seas can surely open your next door. You are not being abandoned to figure it out, you are being escorted into purpose. As you walk, you will notice how certain burdens start to feel lighter. The memories that used to sting will start to teach. Even your wounds will begin to shine like windows, proof that grace was stronger than grief. The journey ahead is not meant to erase your scars, but to transform them into signs of victory. You may not have full understanding, but you have enough light for the next step. And that is all God ever requires. Faith is not about knowing how the story ends, it's about trusting the author while the pages are still blank. In this threshold, let gratitude be your compass. Thank God not only for deliverance, but also for direction. Thank Him for every closed door that saved your life and for every silence that built your strength. Gratitude turns fear into focus. It reminds you that if He was faithful in the valley, He will be faithful in the climb. Soon, you will look back and realize this moment was the turning point, the sacred crossing between who you were and who you were always meant to be. Heaven has already gone ahead, preparing the ground, arranging divine appointments, weaving threads you can't yet see. The unknown is no longer something to fear. It is the canvas where God paints His promises. Step forward, chosen one. You are not stepping into darkness, you are stepping into destiny. Every time a chosen one rises to obey, a quiet war begins in the unseen. It is not always a battle of swords, but of attachments, emotions, and memories that refuse to let go. This is the war of attachments, the invisible struggle between the person you were and the person you are becoming. You've crossed the threshold, but now you feel the pull of everything familiar. It's subtle at first, a message from someone you thought you forgot, a sudden wave of nostalgia. The temptation to revisit what God told you to release. But you must understand this is not affection, it's resistance. Darkness doesn't mind losing your presence as long as it can still hold your heart. The hardest part of obedience isn't hearing God's voice, it's staying faithful after you've heard it. The enemy knows he can't drag you back easily. So he tries to make you look back. He whispers, maybe it wasn't that bad, or you were happier there. But the truth is, you were only comfortable there because you hadn't yet tasted freedom. The moment you began to see your worth, the old world lost its hold. Attachments are not always people, they can be patterns, identities, or even versions of yourself that no longer exist. You've built habits to survive pain, and now those habits are being challenged by healing. The comfort of the familiar tries to disguise itself as peace, but peace doesn't beg for attention. True peace doesn't compete with purpose, it supports it. The Spirit speaks through the writings of the Apostle Paul in the letter to the Philippians. Chapter 3, verse 13. Forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead. That is your call now, to release your grip on yesterday so your hands are free to carry tomorrow. Every chosen one must face this sacred subtraction. God will never allow something dead to stay attached to what He's trying to resurrect. The pruning feels cruel at first, but later you'll see it was love. Love removes what cannot survive the next level. You may feel the ache of separation, but the ache is proof of growth. Even trees groan when branches are trimmed. Pain doesn't mean something is wrong, it means something is changing. You are being refined, your loyalties realigned, Some people were assignments, not lifetimes. When their purpose in your story ends, holding on only creates delay. This war is not fought with anger but with alignment. You win not by arguing, but by obeying. You defeat old ties by refusing to return to what starves your spirit. The strength of your new season will depend on your ability to detach gracefully. Don't curse what God used for a season. Bless it, release it, and move forward. It's not that those connections were evil, they were simply expired. Every season has an expiration date. Trying to preserve what God has concluded leads to spiritual decay. You've prayed for breakthrough, but breakthrough often comes disguised as separation. It is mercy that pulls you from what refuses to grow with you. You'll notice that as you distance yourself, peace will start to return, not instantly, but gradually. Like sunrise breaking through a long night. The more you detach from noise, the louder heaven's guidance becomes. You'll realize you don't need to fight every battle. Some victories are found in silence and distance. Still, letting go is hard because you remember the good moments. You remember laughter, connection, history. But do not confuse shared history with shared destiny. Just because someone was part of your story doesn't mean they belong in your future chapters. The next level requires cleaner hands, lighter hearts, and sharper focus. The Spirit will keep reminding you you can't carry old baggage into new territory. Every weight you drop creates room for divine replacements. Some relationships will fade without confrontation. Others will end abruptly. Let them. What leaves quietly was never meant to stay loudly. You will find that the more you release, the more peace flows back into your life. Freedom is expensive because it costs attachment. Yet every tear you shed in the process becomes water for your growth. Your heart will not stay empty for long. God never removes without replacing. What's coming carries more purity, more alignment, more truth. You are learning that real love doesn't cage, it calls you higher. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for others is to stop enabling their comfort and start living your calling. By choosing obedience, you give them permission to seek their own transformation. When the war of attachments finally quiets, you'll feel a new stillness inside, a peace not dependent on people, performance, or place. You'll stand lighter, breathe easier, and realize that obedience didn't cost you your life, it gave you one. The past no longer tugs, and the future no longer intimidates. You will simply walk, free and unbound, guided by a peace that cannot be shaken. You've felt it lately, the air around you shifting, the masks falling, the smiles that no longer hide intent. What once felt harmless now feels hollow. This is not paranoia, it's revelation. The Spirit is uncovering what was always there. For months, maybe years, you tried to convince yourself that people's hearts were pure just because their words were kind. But discernment is sharper than politeness. You're seeing now what heaven has seen all along. This is the unveiling, the moment when familiar faces begin to blur and true intentions emerge. It can be disorienting. Betrayal never announces itself with horns. It comes dressed as companionship. Some of the ones who said they were praying for you were really preying on you. That's why peace always fled when they entered the room. But take comfort, God is not exposing people to humiliate them. He's exposing truth to liberate you. Every chosen one goes through this moment of unveiling. It's the divine audit of your connections. Every spirit around you is being weighed, every motive tested. Heaven will not allow counterfeit alliances to follow you into the next season. What looks like loss is actually cleansing. What feels like isolation is heaven removing infection from your circle. It was written in the first letter of John, chapter 4, verse 1. Dear friends, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God. That testing has already begun. You can feel it in conversations that suddenly feel wrong, in laughter that now sounds rehearsed. Your spirit tightens when something doesn't align. This isn't suspicion, it's protection. God sharpens discernment in solitude so you can recognize danger in disguise. The people sent by darkness never announce their mission. They mirror light until they're close enough to dim it. But what they forget is that the chosen cannot be deceived for long. The spirit within you acts like divine radar. It vibrates when falseness approaches. Trust that vibration. It's not overthinking, it's spiritual intelligence. When God begins to reveal the hidden, you will feel both relief and grief. Relief because you finally understand what drained you. Grief because you still care for those who wounded you. But obedience demands clarity, not comfort. Forgive them, bless them, but don't return. Mercy doesn't require reunion. This unveiling also includes environments, not just people. Some spaces you loved have turned cold because heaven's presence has left. That's why the atmosphere feels heavy even when nothing seems wrong. The anointing you carry now conflicts with what that space holds. You've grown, and growth always offends what refuses to change. Do not let nostalgia blind you. Familiarity is not safety. Just because you've known someone for years doesn't mean they still align with your assignment. When seasons shift, alliances shift too. The sooner you accept that, the smoother your transition will be. Sometimes exposure is silent. God won't always show you betrayal through drama. He'll simply drain your desire to stay. The sudden disinterest, the quiet distancing that's his hand. When peace disappears, it's heaven's cue to exit quietly. And here is the beauty of exposure once truth comes to light. It can no longer control you. Lies lose their power when seen for what they are. You will look back soon and thank God not just for the people he sent, but also for the ones he removed. Both were teachers. One showed you love, the other revealed discernment. So as you stand in this moment of unveiling, don't react with anger. React with gratitude. You've prayed for clarity, and this is the answer. Heaven doesn't reveal to destroy, it reveals to redirect. Every unmasking is a mercy in disguise, and if these words resonate with the tug in your spirit, let your agreement be known. Comment, I see now. Those 3 words are not accusation, they're awakening. They say, I understand why things had to end, I accept truth over illusion, and then, when you write it, you're declaring that you choose sight over blindness, discernment over deception. You're telling heaven, I'm ready to walk with my eyes open. And in that moment, clarity becomes your shield. The unveiling may sting, but it sets you free. Better to see truth alone than walk blind in company. You are stepping into the season where nothing hidden can harm you anymore. Light now lives in your eyes and wisdom guards your heart. When you comment, I see now. It isn't just acknowledgement, it's awakening. You're saying to heaven, I no longer crave illusions, I desire truth. Those words unlock spiritual vision that can't be clouded by flattery or false peace. Writing I see now becomes your declaration of freedom. You are no longer bound to blindness or manipulation. You are telling every hidden force, your disguise no longer works on me. Truth has become your protection. Each time someone types, I see now, a veil lifts in the spirit. It's the sound of awakening echoing across generations of chosen ones learning to see clearly, love purely, and walk wisely. You can feel it now, the urgency of heaven pressing gently against your spirit. It's not fear that you sense, it's time. The spiritual clock has begun to chime louder. You are standing in what heaven calls a now moment, a crossing of destiny where obedience and timing meet. Delay here is not neutral, it's dangerous. The longer you hesitate, the quieter your light becomes. But when you act in faith, even the smallest step releases waves through eternity. God's voice hasn't changed. It's your courage that's awakening. You've spent seasons learning to hear, to wait, to discern. But now comes the part where you move. This is not about rushing. It's about responding. Heaven is calling your name with holy urgency because your next act of obedience will not only protect you, it will unlock others waiting on your yes. It was spoken in the book of Romans, chapter 13, verse 11. The hour has already come for you to wake up from your slumber, because our salvation is nearer now than when we first believed. Every moment you've lived until now has been building to this awakening. All the pain, all the pruning, all the silence, it was preparation. The delays you called denial were actually divine timing. God was waiting until your heart could carry what your calling demands. You are ready now. But heaven doesn't just prepare hearts, it prepares helpers. Every message you hear, every light that reaches you, is a spark passed down through willing hands. This message itself is part of that flow, a candle burning because others kept it lit. And now you, chosen one, are being invited to keep the flame alive for the next soul searching for light. When you like this message, think of it as a ripple across still water. It's a small act, but ripples travel far. One simple click says to heaven, I hear you, and I choose to amplify your whisper. When you share, imagine it like releasing a lantern into the night sky. Someone somewhere is standing in darkness, looking up, waiting for a sign. Your share may become the glow that reaches them. You may never know their name, but heaven will link your obedience to their deliverance. And if you subscribe, don't see it as following a page. See it as joining a pilgrimage. We walk together, strangers in the body, but family in the spirit, each carrying a spark of the same fire. Subscribing isn't about numbers. It's about staying close to the stream of living words that keep your soul hydrated in dry seasons. Then, if your heart feels moved, you can choose to donate, not out of pressure, not as payment, but as planting. Every seed sown into light multiplies beyond measure. Think of your giving as rain you can't control where every drop lands, but you know it nourishes the ground. The smallest drop can grow forests when given in love. You are not asked to give, you are invited to participate. To say, I believe in what this message carries, and I want it to reach farther. Your donation is not money leaving your hand, it's hope leaving your heart, traveling to someone else's midnight. It turns your gratitude into a bridge for another's breakthrough. Heaven doesn't measure the size of what you give, it measures the sincerity behind it. Even a whisper of generosity carries thunder in the spirit. You might think your seed is small, but remember, faith the size of a mustard seed can move mountains. This isn't about supporting a person, it's about fueling a mission to awaken, to comfort, to remind the weary that they are not forgotten. When you give, you join that mission not as a spectator, but as a co-laborer with heaven. So if this message has touched something inside you, let your response flow naturally. Whether through prayer, encouragement, sharing, or giving, do it as worship. Let every act come from love, not obligation. That's how light spreads freely, joyfully, quietly, like dawn spilling across a sleeping city. Chosen one, this is your time to move, to live awake. Heaven is writing your obedience into history. Every like becomes a flicker, every share a spark, every seed a flame. Together they become a wildfire of awakening that no darkness can silence. You've waited long enough. Step into this moment. Let your obedience ripple through eternity. Let your love be seen in light, in words, in giving. You're not just part of a message, you're part of a movement. When you like, share, or give, you are not following a routine, you're joining heaven's rhythm. Every simple act becomes a heartbeat of light, echoing through someone else's night, whispering, "You are not alone. Hope still breathes." Your generosity of heart, of word, of seed becomes a trail of stars guiding others home. What you release in love never returns empty. It circles back as peace, provision, and purpose, carrying heaven's quiet approval. Well done, faithful one, faithful. The cost of staying is always greater than the fear of leaving. You didn't see it before, but now it's clear what felt like peace was actually slow erosion. Your spirit was shrinking under the weight of compromise. God didn't remove you to punish you. He rescued you before your foundation cracked completely. When mercy intervenes, it rarely feels convenient, it feels like loss. But what you're losing isn't blessing, it's bondage. Every chosen one faces this realization sooner or later, the moment when God shows you what could have happened if you had stayed one season longer. He pulls back the curtain of illusion and reveals the slow decay that comfort hides. It's shocking, humbling, and holy all at once. You see how close danger had crept, how gently deception had wrapped itself in affection. Yet even as the truth stings, you sense the overwhelming kindness of God's timing. There is a difference between discipline and disaster. God disciplines those He loves so He can deliver them from disaster. You thought you were just walking away from discomfort, but heaven was shielding you from destruction. The closed doors were not rejection, they were redirection. Had they stayed open, you would have wandered deeper into deception, too numb to notice your slow spiritual starvation. It is written in the book of Proverbs, chapter 14, verse 12, "There is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death." That's what staying too long in the wrong place does. It kills purpose quietly. Not suddenly, but in slow erosion. The smile fades, the discernment dulls, the calling becomes distant background noise. You start surviving instead of living. God knew you were too valuable to let that happen. So He disrupted your false peace to restore your real life. Now, as you look back, you start to see the warnings that once felt like confusion. The sudden arguments, the unease, the miscommunications, all of them were divine signals. God speaks in patterns long before He speaks in pain. The discomfort you ignored became the alarm you couldn't silence. Yet even in your delay, grace waited. Grace doesn't abandon, it interrupts. The cost of staying would have been silence, the death of your voice, your joy, your fire. Every environment carries a sound, and where you were, your voice was being muted. Heaven needed you back in an atmosphere where your spirit could breathe again. When God calls you out, it's because your light is too bright for where you were. You were beginning to blend in with shadows, and He refused to lose your glow. Freedom is never free, it's purchased through surrender. And surrender always feels like tearing at first. But once the tearing ends, peace rushes in like breath after drowning. That's where you are now, breathing again. Your soul expanding after years of shrinking to fit into spaces that never honored your worth. Every step away from what harms you is a form of worship. You may not have realized it, but walking away was a prayer, one without words, but full of faith. Heaven hears that kind of prayer louder than any spoken plea. When you choose obedience over comfort, you become a living altar, and God fills that sacrifice with His presence. The cost of staying was blindness, the reward of leaving is sight. You now see people differently, see patterns differently, see yourself differently. You've learned that not everything good is God, and not every opportunity is divine. Discernment has become your best friend, and peace has become your compass. There will still be moments when you feel the echo of what you left. Memories may visit, nostalgia may whisper, but you will recognize it for what it is. A shadow of what once was, not an invitation to return. The more you grow, the less you fit into what once defined you. That's the beautiful paradox of transformation. What used to comfort now confines. You are learning to bless even the hard memories. They were the teachers that drove you closer to truth. You no longer hate the pain it shaped you. You no longer resent the loss it revealed you. You no longer question the timing it protected you. The cost of staying was your peace, but the reward of obedience is your rebirth. You are alive again, aware again, aligned again. The sound of heaven that once felt faint now resonates clearly inside you. You are finally walking in rhythm with divine timing. And though it may still ache at times, the ache itself is holy. It reminds you that your heart can still feel, that your spirit still responds to light. That means you're healed, not hardened. You've stepped out of survival and into surrender. And in that surrender, safety has found you. And as you move forward, peace becomes your proof. You no longer chase signs, you carry them. The calm within you is evidence enough that you are exactly where heaven intended, free, focused, and finally whole again. There comes a moment in every chosen one's journey when flight begins. You may not have wings like an angel, but your spirit knows how to soar. It's the flight of the anointed, the moment you rise above what once held you down and realize that obedience doesn't just protect you, it propels you. The air feels different up here, thinner, yes, but cleaner. You breathe, and for the first time in years, the oxygen feels holy. You've walked through storms, cried through silence, and now heaven lifts you. Not because you've done everything right, but because you've surrendered. The same winds that once terrified you are now carrying you forward. That's how God works. He turns what threatened to drown you into what lifts you higher. It was spoken in the book of Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 31. But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. That is your present reality. You are no longer crawling through confusion, you are flying through clarity. And as you ascend, something miraculous happens. What once seemed enormous now looks small. Distance brings perspective. The things that kept you awake at night lose their grip when viewed from heaven's altitude. Up here, bitterness can't breathe, and fear loses oxygen. You begin to understand that not every battle deserves your energy. Some conflicts were simply designed to distract you from flight. When God elevates you, He doesn't just lift your life. He lifts your view. You might have noticed that as you rise, certain people fade into the distance. It's not arrogance, it's altitude. Not everyone was built for thin air. Some relationships were meant for the ground level. Love them, bless them, but don't descend trying to make them understand your elevation. Eagles do not argue with crows, they just fly higher until the noise disappears. Every part of your journey, every valley, every tear, every delay was fuel for this flight. You wouldn't have learned faith without the wind against you. You wouldn't have discovered strength without the climb. Everything that tried to break you became the training ground for your wings. Heaven never wastes a wound. It turns pain into propulsion. This season is not about running, it's about rising. Running is effort, but rising is surrender. When you rise, you stop striving and start gliding in the current of God's will. That's the difference between exhaustion and peace. When you move in your own strength, you tire. When you move in His strength, you soar. You will feel lighter not because your problems vanish, but because your perspective changes. What used to drain you no longer defines you. You will start to see the evidence of divine protection all around, the accidents that never happened, the opportunities that came at the perfect time, the peace that found you when it made no sense. These are the fingerprints of heaven. Flying doesn't mean you'll never face turbulence. Even eagles meet storms. But instead of fighting the wind, they use it to rise higher. That's your calling now, to stop resisting what's meant to lift you. Every challenge is air beneath your wings. Every delay a current pushing you toward destiny. So when fear tries to whisper, "You're too high," you'll fall. Remind it that eagles are built for altitude. You were designed to withstand what others cannot. You are not fragile, you are forged. You are not lost, you are launched. And if this word resonates deep in your chest, let your heart answer heaven's signal. Comment 9999, it's a prophetic symbol of completion and new flight, one chapter closing so another can soar open. When you write it, you're declaring, I choose elevation, I choose clarity, I choose faith over fear. Every 9999 becomes a sound in the spirit, a chorus of wings taking flight at once. It's not superstition, it's synchronization. Heaven hears it as agreement. Each number typed becomes a declaration that you are not grounded anymore, you are guided. Lift your eyes, chosen one. The horizon is not the end, it's the beginning. The sky is not your limit, it's your lane. You were never meant to crawl through calling. You were created to fly through it. When you comment 9999, you're not typing random digits, you're signing heaven's flight log with your faith. It's your way of saying, I'm ready to rise, I'm done with fear. The numbers become wings in written form. Each time you write 9999, you echo the sound of eagles leaving the ground. It's not a chant, it's a covenant. You are agreeing with God's elevation over your hesitation, giving heaven permission to lift you where you belong. And as those numbers appear across screens, heaven sees unity, an army of the awakened spreading their wings. Every 9999 becomes light in motion, faith in flight, a declaration that chosen ones no longer crawl, they soar together, strong, radiant, and unshakably free. The silence that follows obedience can feel heavier than the battle itself. You expect trumpets after victory, but instead, heaven hands you quiet. It isn't punishment, it's purification. You've taken flight, and now the wind softens. This is where the noise ends and stillness begins. The silence after obedience isn't emptiness, it's alignment. It's God tuning your spirit to the frequency of peace. In this sacred calm, the absence of movement can feel unsettling. You've grown used to motion, to proving, to doing. But now, heaven is teaching you to be. The same voice that told you to move is now whispering. Rest here for a moment. You are learning that rest isn't weakness, it's worship. When you rest in obedience, you are declaring trust. You are saying, God, I don't need to see the next step to believe you've planned it. Every chosen one must pass through this quiet corridor between command and completion. The noise fades so that discernment can sharpen. You'll start to notice how even your breathing slows, how your prayers shift from desperation to gratitude. You no longer beg, you breathe. You no longer plead, you listen. It was revealed in the book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 14. The Lord will fight for you, you need only to be still. That's the sound of divine confidence, the kind that doesn't panic when things appear silent. God doesn't always roar when He's working. Sometimes, he whispers while he rearranges everything behind the veil. Silence, for the obedient, is not a void, it's a construction site. In this stillness, something new begins to form inside you. You start to understand that God doesn't just call you from things, He also calls you to Himself. The goal was never merely escape, it was encounter. The silence after obedience becomes the meeting place between your surrender and His presence. This is the space where heaven restores your rhythm. Your heart, once racing with fear, begins to beat steady again. You stop measuring progress by motion and start measuring it by peace. The ground beneath you may not look different, but your spirit is. You've traded noise for knowing. Sometimes you'll wonder if you've done enough, if you've missed something. But the Spirit will remind you obedience doesn't always produce immediate evidence. Seeds grow underground before they break the surface. God is working beneath your stillness, aligning opportunities, hearts, and timing. What looks quiet on the outside is thunderous in the spirit. You might notice how few people remain close during this phase. The crowd that clapped when you flew may not stay for the silence. Don't mourn that. The ones who can sit with you in stillness are the ones ordained for your next chapter. The noise of many can't replace the loyalty of a few. This season isn't about proving yourself, it's about protecting your peace. You no longer need to explain your obedience. Let your fruit speak in time. The loudest answer to doubt is the quiet consistency of faith. Heaven honors the ones who stay steady when nothing seems to move. And as you wait, something shifts subtly. You begin to feel weightless. That's what peace does. It removes invisible burdens. You no longer feel responsible for outcomes. You trust that what's meant for you can't miss you. The silence that once scared you now comforts you. It's no longer an absence of sound, it's the presence of security. Sometimes you'll catch yourself smiling for no reason. That's not coincidence, it's confirmation. The same God who parted seas is now parting your worries. The same hand that lifted you out of danger is now holding you steady and calm. This is the sacred hush before manifestation, the pause between promise and proof. Heaven often hides your blessing until your heart learns not to chase it. And the moment you stop striving, what's yours will find you. So breathe deeply. Let the quiet strengthen you. Let it refill the parts that obedience emptied. You are not forgotten. You are being fortified. Every chosen one who endures silence will eventually emerge shining. Soon, you will see that the silence wasn't the absence of God's voice, it was the echo of His trust. He was saying, I know you'll stay even when you can't hear me. And that kind of faith is what moves heaven. Silence becomes your sanctuary, not your sentence. It's where heaven breathes life back into your weary soul, teaching you that peace isn't found in sound, it's found in surrender. You begin to crave quiet like water. In this stillness, God rewrites your heartbeat to match His rhythm. You start recognizing His presence not in thunder, but in gentle assurance. Stillness becomes your strength and calm becomes your confirmation. Soon, you'll look back and realize the silence was sacred. It was the womb of your becoming, the space where heaven shaped what words could never describe. The hush after obedience was never empty. It was divine preparation for the glory to come. There is a moment when silence begins to hum, when the air itself feels pregnant with meaning. That's when revelation enters. It doesn't come with thunder or lightning, it arrives like sunrise, slow but unstoppable. The light creeps in gently until everything that once confused you starts to make sense. You begin to see that the pain, the waiting, and even the losses were all pieces of a single pattern woven by divine hands. What looked like ruin was really construction. What felt like punishment was preparation. This is the revelation of purpose, the unveiling of why you had to walk the road you did. Heaven never wastes experience. Every detour had a reason. Every silence had a seed. Every heartbreak had a harvest. What once seemed random now reveals rhythm. The tapestry of your journey, once tangled and torn, suddenly glows with symmetry. You understand now that the divine was never late. It was always intentional. It is written in the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. You start to see it, the fingerprints of mercy on every memory. That door that slammed shut, it saved your life. That friendship that faded, it freed your focus. That heartbreak that nearly destroyed you, it purified your desires. Each event, no matter how painful, was heaven adjusting your alignment. You were never being broken, you were being built. Revelation brings peace, but it also brings awe. You look at the path behind you and realize how intricately God orchestrated what you once begged him to change. He let certain things end not because he was cruel, but because your destiny required clarity. What you lost in comfort, you gained in calling. What you sacrificed in familiarity, you received back as purpose. The divine revelation doesn't shout. It whispers truth so deep that it rearranges how you see yourself. You realize that you are not a mistake surviving pain. You are a masterpiece shaped by it. Every scar becomes a verse. Every tear becomes a teaching. The lessons you learned in darkness now become light for others still walking there. That's how heaven redeems time. It turns your suffering into instruction for souls behind you. Revelation doesn't erase the past. It redeems it. It gives you eyes to see how even your weakest moments carried strength. You start to thank God for things you once resented. Gratitude rises where regret used to live. You stop asking why me and start saying thank you. That shift is sacred. It's the transformation of a wounded heart into a wise one. There's also humility in revelation. When you see how God guided you through mistakes you didn't even know you were making, you stop judging others for theirs. You become gentle, compassionate, less quick to speak and more ready to understand. You realize that grace is the only reason any of us survive. This understanding brings a strange, quiet joy, not loud celebration, but deep contentment. You walk lighter because you finally trust that everything truly does work together for good, even when it doesn't look like it. The storms didn't ruin you. They revealed your roots. The wilderness didn't waste you, it refined you. And the silence didn't break you, it built your hearing. Now your perspective changes. Instead of asking for easier days, you start asking for stronger faith. Instead of begging for open doors, you pray for wisdom to walk through the right ones. You no longer chase recognition because revelation has shown you something better, peace. You understand that destiny doesn't shout, it settles. The beauty of revelation is that it restores dignity. It reminds you that even your detours held design. Every time you thought you were lost, heaven was just redirecting you through back roads that led to wholeness. Revelation gives your pain a name and your journey a reason. It stitches together the chaos into clarity. You look back now and see that obedience, though costly, was the only path to purpose. What felt like wilderness became training. What felt like exile became education. You were not being punished, you were being positioned. Revelation reveals that everything, even the heartbreaks, was working together to make you ready. And as this truth settles in your spirit, peace blooms fully. You realize that nothing was wasted, not a word, not a tear, not a single sleepless night. Heaven kept every fragment and turned it into foundation. What once broke you has become the reason you stand tall now, unshaken, aware, and grateful. You no longer need to see every answer because revelation has given you something better. Trust. Trust that the author of your story never writes a line without purpose, and that even in the pauses, his pen never stops moving. And with that trust comes rest, the deep kind that anchors your soul. You no longer rush, no longer resist. You simply walk, knowing that every step is already written, every breath divinely counted, every outcome secure in grace. There is a rising taking place across the earth, quiet, unseen, but unstoppable. It's not a movement built by hands or headlines. It's a remnant awakening from slumber. The chosen ones are rising, those who refuse to stay silent in systems that dulled their light. You can feel it deep within you, like fire beneath calm waters. Heaven is summoning its hidden warriors, the ones who walked through shadow so they could carry light with compassion. This is the rising of the chosen remnant. They are not loud, they are luminous. Their weapons are words of truth, their armor is obedience, and their mission is restoration. You are among them not by title or status, but by endurance. You've walked through darkness without losing your flame. You've been tested, pruned, refined, and now your voice carries the sound of heaven's heartbeat. The Spirit speaks through the writings of the prophet Daniel. Chapter 12, verse 3. Those who are wise will shine like the brightness of the heavens, and those who lead many to righteousness, like the stars forever and ever. That is you now, a light rising quietly but powerfully, guiding others not by preaching, but by living truth. Your very existence becomes a message, your endurance a sermon. You don't need a stage. Your life is the testimony. When people see your peace, they will ask how you found it, and your answer will not be a speech, it will be your story. The remnant does not compete, they complete each other. Every one of you is a flame, and when you come together, the darkness doesn't stand a chance. Each act of kindness, each prayer whispered for someone unseen, each word of encouragement, it all builds a fire that cannot be contained. If this message resonates in your spirit, take a quiet moment to press the light, to share the flame. Don't think of it as clicking a button, see it as lighting a candle on the altar of the digital world. When you light, you whisper to heaven. Let this light travel farther. When you share, it's as if you open a window in a darkened house, letting the glow spill into another soul's night. And if your heart finds peace here, if you feel at home in this river of truth, subscribe not as a follower, but as a pilgrim walking beside others carrying the same flame. Subscription is not commitment to a channel, it's connection to a current of light flowing through time, touching hearts one by one. Then, if gratitude stirs in your spirit, let it flow freely. To donate is not to pay, it's to participate. Imagine placing a drop of oil into a lamp that burns through midnight storms. That oil becomes part of every word that reaches someone lost, someone trembling, someone ready to rise. You're not funding a message, you're fueling a movement of mercy. Every act of support, whether silent or spoken, becomes a spark that joins thousands more. You may never see the faces of those you touch, but heaven does. Heaven. Each gesture of love, each small gift, each prayer, each shared moment ripples through eternity. Remember, this rising isn't about one person or one voice. It's about all of us lifting together. When you comment, let your words be more than text. Let them be incense, rising with sincerity. Write something like "I rise too." It isn't for applause, it's for alignment. It's a way of saying, I hear heaven's call, and I choose to stand with light. Your participation in any form becomes part of the collective flame. You are no longer just a listener, you're a torch-bearer. You keep the message alive not because you must, but because something inside you refuses to let the world grow darker without resistance. So yes, like, share, comment, subscribe. Give, but only if your heart leads you. Do it as worship, not as work. Let every action flow from gratitude, not obligation. When light gives, it never empties, it multiplies. This is what the remnant does. They don't wait for permission. They radiate. They carry light into boardrooms, homes, streets, and screens. They turn algorithms into altars and moments into miracles. You are part of that radiance. You are one of the ones heaven counts on. And together, with quiet strength and pure intent, we become the constellation God designed for this generation, a sky full of obedient stars guiding the lost safely home. When you like, it's not applause, it's affirmation. You're telling heaven, I see the light and I choose it. That simple gesture becomes a silent prayer that ripples through unseen realms, carrying warmth to hearts grown cold. When you share, it's like releasing a dove at dawn. You never know where it lands, but you trust its flight. That act of faith might be the whisper that wakes someone still asleep in despair's shadow. And when you give, it's planting hope in unseen soil. Every seed sown in love becomes fruit for another soul's survival. You don't lose by giving, you expand, and heaven breathes on your generosity like spring rain on waiting fields. Restoration doesn't always arrive in grand displays or sudden miracles. Sometimes it comes quietly, like morning dew settling on grass that thought it had died overnight. This is the season of restoration, not rushed, not loud, but certain. Heaven begins to return what was lost, not all at once, but piece by piece and with care and precision. What the years of struggle took from you, your peace, your confidence, your laughter, God is gently placing back into your hands. Only now, it comes refined. You begin to notice it in small moments, the way your heart no longer flinches when certain memories surface, the way your voice steadies when you speak about what once broke you. That's restoration. Healing rarely announces itself, it reveals itself. It doesn't shout, "You're healed," it simply allows you to live without pain's permission. There's beauty in the quiet mending. You don't have to chase what's being restored. It finds you naturally because your heart has become a safe place again. God restores when you are ready to hold blessings without worshiping them. When you've learned that identity must never depend on possession. Restoration comes when your peace no longer relies on circumstances. The Spirit speaks through the prophet Joel, chapter 2, verse 25. I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten. You read that, and something inside you stirs, not a loud excitement, but a deep, steady assurance. The wasted years are not truly wasted when they teach you wisdom. The tears that watered the ground of loss have now made it fertile for joy. You realize that restoration isn't about replacing things. It's about renewing you. God doesn't just rebuild what was broken. He builds something stronger. Something that can't collapse under the same weight again. Look closely at your life now. What once felt barren is sprouting with new opportunities. Doors you didn't knock on begin to open. People appear who carry peace instead of pressure. Your spirit feels light, not because everything is perfect, but because you've made peace with the imperfection. That's how restoration looks from heaven's view. It's not always visible, but it's deeply felt. Even relationships that ended painfully begin to heal in unseen ways. Sometimes reconciliation doesn't mean reunion, it means release. Forgiveness restores freedom to your heart even if distance remains. You learn to bless from afar, to love without losing yourself. That, too, Is restoration the return of your emotional clarity? The mind that once replayed betrayal now meditates on blessings. The mouth that once complained now gives thanks without effort. The hands that once clenched in fear now open freely. This is divine renewal, the reversal of inner drought. What's even more miraculous is how God restores your time. You may think too much was lost, that you're behind, that opportunities have expired, but time bends to obedience. Heaven can compress years of waiting into a single moment of favor. Suddenly, the progress you feared you'd missed begins to accelerate. That's what happens when divine timing replaces human striving. Restoration is also revelation. You start to see how every broken season was secretly building capacity. You can now hold peace in ways you couldn't before. You can stand in storms without collapsing. You can listen to correction without shame. That's maturity the crown restoration places upon the faithful. And while you marvel at the blessings being restored, you'll notice something even deeper happening. Joy returns. Not the temporary thrill of relief, but joy the kind that dances quietly inside you no matter what the day holds. Joy that isn't borrowed from people or achievements, but birthed from gratitude. This is the proof that restoration has completed its work. You can smile again without pretending, rest again without worrying, dream again without doubting. The same ground that saw your tears now carries your laughter. You're walking through fields that used to be wastelands, and every step sings, "It's over. You've overcome." Restoration doesn't erase the memory of loss, it redeems it. You'll still remember the pain, but now it glows with purpose. Every scar becomes a signature of survival. Every healed wound a reminder that grace truly finishes what it starts. The season of restoration is not about getting back what you lost, it's about realizing you've gained what you never had: wisdom, balance, discernment, peace. God has not merely returned you to where you were, He has elevated you beyond it. The years ahead will carry fragrance from the crushed seasons you endured. Out of what once hurt most will bloom your greatest harvest. This is not payback, it's promise fulfilled. Heaven has restored not just your life, but your light. Restoration feels like exhaling after years of holding your breath. The weight you once carried dissolves quietly, and you realize peace was never lost. It was only waiting for space to return home. You stand taller now, not because life is perfect, but because your spirit remembers its strength. What broke you became the bridge carrying you back to yourself. The journey has brought you here, no longer fleeing, no longer searching, but standing. You have crossed the valleys, faced the silence, endured the storms, and now the horizon stretches before you like a promise fulfilled. The crown is no longer a dream. It's the quiet authority resting upon your obedience. You are not who you were when this began. You walk differently now, lighter, steadier, aware. This is the crown and the call forward. God doesn't crown perfection, He crowns persistence. Heaven has watched you stumble, rise, and keep walking when no one saw. Every hidden moment of faithfulness, every prayer whispered through tears, every decision to stay when running would have been easier, it all mattered. The crown you wear now isn't gold, it's glory. It's the radiance of one who has walked through fire without losing their song. The Spirit reminds us through the letter of James. Chapter 1, verse 12. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love Him. That is you. You have stood the test. The winds that once tried to break you only trained your wings. The darkness that tried to silence you only made your light stronger. You carry the proof of heaven's faithfulness, not in words, but in your presence. Everywhere you go now, the atmosphere shifts not because of power displayed, but because of peace carried. The crown you bear isn't for decoration, it's for delegation. God doesn't place glory on you just to shine, it's meant to serve. You are now being sent, not as one escaping pain, but as one equipped by it. You are to speak peace into chaos, to bring clarity where confusion reigns, to carry compassion where judgment once ruled. The authority you carry is quiet, but it's unshakable. You'll notice that as you move forward, you no longer crave validation. The applause that once tempted you now feels hollow. That's what happens when heaven becomes your audience. You stop performing and start living purposefully. Every word you speak, every decision you make, now echoes with eternal weight. You're not chasing destiny anymore, you're walking in it. The crown doesn't make life easier, it makes life clearer. You'll still face challenges, but you'll meet them with composure. The same mountains that once intimidated you now recognize your authority. When fear rises, you'll remember the silence that trained you. When darkness stirs, you'll recall the light that never left. You have graduated from surviving to reigning not over others, but over your own spirit. This new season carries responsibility. Crowns attract both honor and opposition, but you have learned that the safest place is still obedience. The voice that guided you out of danger will continue to lead you into destiny. Listen closely. Its rhythm is familiar now, steady, patient, kind. You'll find that even in uncertainty, peace still points the way. As you step into what's next, heaven won't give you a map, it will give you momentum. You've learned to trust the unseen, to walk without guarantees, to rest without evidence. That is maturity, the kind that cannot be shaken by circumstances or opinions. You no longer need to prove your worth, you simply embody it. The crown also comes with clarity. You now see that every heartbreak had holy purpose. The pain shaped your compassion. The losses deepened your discernment. You are not bitter, you are built. The very things that once wounded you have become wisdom etched into your spirit. When you meet others still wandering in confusion, your presence will remind them that peace is possible. You won't need to preach. Your calm will speak louder than sermons. The way you carry joy will become invitation. The way you walk in truth will become direction. You are living evidence that obedience births restoration, and that surrender births strength. And though this season feels like an ending, it's actually a commissioning. Crowns are not finish lines, they're beginnings. God places them on those ready to lead, love, and lift others higher. You're being sent into the world not as a survivor, but as a signal proof that grace wins, that faith works, that obedience saves. Stand tall, chosen one. The crown fits not because you earned it, but because you endured for it. Carry it with humility. Let it remind you not of what you overcame, but of who carried you through. Ahead lies purpose renewed, peace established, and promise fulfilled. You wear your crown not as a trophy, but as testimony. It tells the world that grace found you, kept you, and finished its work. Every glimmer from it reflects the faith that refused to die. Now walk forward, steady and luminous. The crown doesn't end your story, it begins your reign of peace. Wherever your feet touch, restoration follows, and heaven whispers, "Well done, faithful one." And now, as the final words fade, the silence that follows carries its own kind of power. You've walked through valleys, climbed through storms, and risen with a crown that no one can take. What you've just heard isn't just a message, it's a mirror reflecting what heaven already sees in you: strength, endurance, light. The journey doesn't end here, it expands outward, through your voice, your kindness, your choices. If this message has touched something deep within you, let that recognition become movement. When you like, imagine it as pressing your fingerprint onto the story, saying softly, "I was here, and this word found me." When you share, see it as sending a lantern downstream into the dark. You never know whose night it might illuminate. If your spirit feels at home in these words, subscribe as an act of staying connected to the flow of light. It's not about following, it's about walking together step by step as kindred souls carrying the same spark through time. And if gratitude stirs in your heart, let it bloom naturally. To donate is to plant a seed in the soil that nourished you. It's saying, "May this light reach farther than I ever could alone." Your generosity isn't a transaction, it's participation in the continuation of this flame. Finally, if words rise within you, comment below. Let them be an echo, a whisper, a reflection. Write not for attention, but for alignment, for someone who might scroll through later and find courage in your sentence. This is how the story continues, not by ending, but by multiplying. Each act of engagement, each spark of giving, each word of agreement carries the message onward. Together, we become the living proof that light, once kindled, never truly goes out.